And,
Yeah.
if you don't follow Dave's online stuff, he does a lot of, there's jujitsu, wrestling, and striking. And, but a big part of it is self-defense. And you
Yes.
also have a big section on women's self-defense.
Yes.
And myself being a law enforcement officer, I really like your stuff because we talk, you talk about situational awareness and things like that, which we can get into. But let's talk about, the kind of women's self-defense and
Mhm.
how that came about. I think, you were in college and maybe kind of
Yeah,
started that
so I
program.
did I was involved with it in high school as being the person that got beat up on. My instructor was a phenomenal instructor, very just down to earth, realistic approach to stuff. And he's the one that actually pushed me to go and train, which I think like during that time too was like unheard of, that he was actually like encouraging me to go to other gyms to train. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, come here once or twice a week. He's like, I want you, go learn how to box, go learn how to do this. He's like, because I don't teach it, but you need that for this stuff. And so like he was big on me going out and training. Um, and so that's kind of just where I started pulling from everything. But when I got into college, we had a few incidents that had happened on our campus. I had reached out to try and offer my services and just say, hey, this is what I do. I'd love to help out, blah, blah, blah. And I got shut down every which way I turned, which I still think even today is still common to happen.
Right.
Schools kind of want to handle it on their own, not let anyone else involved, so on and so forth. So I actually, at least that year, I found out for those specific instances who the actual people were and reached out to them directly, started working with them.
Mm.
And then that transpired into like a group that I would be running like every other month on campus. And so that kind of gave me a lot of time for like, obviously from their perspective, they don't know. They'll eat up and not to put this in like a negative manner for me, but they'll eat up whatever it is I'm teaching them. So I could kind of
Sure.
experiment with stuff and to kind of like
Mhm.
figure out what does and doesn't work or different approaches, whatever. And so I was able to kind of come up with a good program over the course of 4 years of teaching this on college. And so then after I graduated college, I went on tour, um, presenting to different schools. And again, schools would shut me down. So I would go straight to like the organizations. And so I was able to kind of get my foot in the door with sororities, clubs, athletic teams. And I was able to talk to them directly. And then that was like a secondary program that I was working on. So that was a little bit more conversational based. Let's talk about the culture. Let's talk about signs that we should be looking for. How do we handle certain circumstances, sharing stories? Because every time I'd go to one of those presentations, I would hear and talk with a lot of survivors. I had met up with lawyers and talked about the legal process so that I had a good understanding of like what the steps are legally to take. I
Mhm.
spent time with counselors, both sitting in on stuff and then also just working with different counselors so that I understood the crisis end of things so that I can kind of put all this into a package. And so now when I run like a full blown women's course, depending on how long we're doing it, I have the legality of stuff. I have the crisis center and how do we deal with those situations or how do you help somebody going through those situations. We have the at the start, like what are things that we need to pay attention to? How do we present ourselves? So on and so forth. And then you have the physical stuff. What do I actually do in the midst of attack? So I've been able to kind of like over the course of now it's like 10 some years that I've been kind of putting this together, but I've been able to kind of put together what I believe is a good, well-rounded curriculum. And then obviously working with guys such as like Aaron Janetti and some of these other guys that I've met through social media, I've had time to like sit down on their classes and self-defense is self-defense. So I'm able to still sit in and be like, I like the way that you approach this, or I like this idea. I'll take that and incorporate it into my specific material and kind of, put it together and come out with something else. And so it's nice kind of handling in that sense. But yeah, it's just something that because of the relationships I've had with some of the women that I've worked with, um, just on like a friendship level and some of the close to home situations that have come up, it's that specific subject has always been extremely personal for me. So yeah, self defense at the end of the day. I will always bend over backwards to do anything when it comes to like women's safety, domestic violence, sexual violence, anything along those lines. I'm always going to be one of the first ones to jump in and help out in those situations. But again, you want law enforcement, I'll help out with law enforcement. You want bullied kids, stuff like that. Like, yeah, I'm always up for that. That's just kind of like my specific area that's very passionate and something that I still am a lot of touch with schools that, I'll still go out and do stuff and pay attention to kind of what's going on campuses, just trying to at least stay up to date on everything in that end.
No, that's fantastic. And that you took that initiative in college and it kind of transformed and all that. That's really amazing. And yeah, just like you said, self-defense is self-defense and kind of for everyone. And but to see, women particularly come in and I have it even in fundamental jujitsu. And sometimes I just show them like some break fall stuff, some technical
Mhm.
stand up, and how to, when they take a trial class. And usually when I show them grip breaks, that really kind of clicks in, and they kind of see like, oh, I could actually use this jujitsu technique on the street, and how to break grips and how to
Right.
break free. And yeah, so the power of, self defense and jujitsu, and just, how it could benefit, everyone is,
Right. And
really
even
a
at
good
the
thing.
same time, like you have to give it some real you kind of have to give them a little bit of reality check with some of the stuff as well. Like we'll do some drills just to kind of see where they're at. And I'll be like, all right,
Mhm.
here's a punching bag. I want you to go to town. I'm not going to tell you how long. I want you to just hit this bag as hard as you can, as fast as you can, before I even teach them anything. Just
Right.
beat the shit out of the bag. And I'll usually do like 15 or 20 seconds. And that's enough to kind of gas somebody out that's never done it before.
Sure.
But 20 seconds is a long time if you're not used to it,
Right.
and they'll be like, oh my God, that was 20 seconds. I'm like, yeah, that was 20 seconds of hitting a bag. And then you give them like, you do that a couple times, you show them a few strikes, you have them do it. You can see that they start feeling better. They're learning how to breathe a little bit more.
Mhm.
Then you give them the reality check, right? And it's like, okay, that's 20 seconds of hitting bag. Now let's say it's 20 seconds of your husband trying to choke you up against a wall, or a man trying to grab you and pull you off into a car. And you've got 20 seconds. And if you're not free after those 20 seconds, that's
It's
it.
over. Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
kind of gives them like a little of like a sunken, not like it sucks to win out of them, but it gives them like a big reality check. And then you go through the drill again, and then you see the difference of like, I got to beat the piss out of this bag for 20
Right.
seconds. But you have to remind, like, as much as I want those classes to be fun, you have to throw in the reality checks every once in a while, because you don't want, our goal is to, and I hate using the term, like I'm not necessarily trying to empower you. I'm trying to make you realize what you're capable of doing, because a lot of people don't
Mhm.
realize how capable they are of actually applying damage.
Sure.
But you got to have a good understanding of like what a violent attack is going to consist of, and that it's
Mhm.
not fun, and like we're not going to be giggling and laughing about, like we got to have those checks in place to kind of just bring you back down to reality as much as possible.